I like this. It's a bold move.
Red, white, and blue. So yeah,
I love
got
it.
the Latin flair, but still patriotic.
It's good. It works. It's kind of like a little. It adds to the international flavor of this.
I just missed Florida, so I'm looking forward to going back.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Let's dive into this awfully important topic. I want to be made irrelevant in this conversation because all of you are doing amazing things. But Sarah, I just want to pitch it to you to get started.
Okay.
We went down to CPAC, Mexico. We're in Mexico City. By the way, my Cuban wife was like, I don't know if you guys know this, there's like a little rivalry between all the Latinos and Latinas.
Very.
Not the Latinx, because that's like an unexistent thing. But you know, the Cubans and the Puerto Ricans and the Venezuelans, there's like, you know, they have their own little rivalries. And I will tell on my wife a little bit. She's like, oh, the Mexicans. I don't know, should we be doing CPAC Mexico? And then she like falls in love with the Mexicans. If you've ever been to Mexico City.
You absolutely fall in love with
And let me tell you, Americans have to be careful because we're like, oh, we can't go to Mexico City, it's dangerous. And after I got back from Mexico City, I was like, I think Americans ought to stop saying that because have you been to San Francisco or LA or New York City? I think we got our own problems. But the point is we go down to Mexico City and with Eduardo Verostegui and Rosie and all these new friends we made, tell us a little bit about what they're doing in this great orphanage, Chalco.
So we were very blessed when we were in Mexico. We had an opportunity to be with Caledo. It's a nonprofit organization that works with children that have been trafficked. These are all children, kids under the age of 18. So they have special homes in undisclosed locations in Mexico that are specifically for the kids that have been rescued from their abductors. So whenever you hear stories, and we were talking about this backstage with the AG, with Julio, with Matt, whenever you hear stories, like, is that really true? Are children really being abducted? Are children being trafficked? Yes, they are, because I took you and Mercy with Rosie to these homes so that you could see for yourself and meet these children. And we were able to go to the homes and talk to some of the children that were being kept there. Some of the children are as young as 6 years old. And this is in Mexico. We have homes in the United States as well. So when we discuss the topic of human trafficking, and when I'm on television and I talk about it, when I work on investigative stories and travel like Julio to Central America, and we talk about the US-Mexico border, and you see these beautiful little children, 2 years old, crying because they're alone and they've been trafficked into the United States. I want you to imagine what it must be like for those kids to be brought into this country and then delivered, literally delivered into the hands of their abusers. But when I was backstage and I saw that video clip of President Trump, and after he was shot, and thinking how close we all were to losing him, and how grateful I am to God that he is now the president of these United States.
Literally saving children's lives.
Literally saving children's lives. When we were here last year, and I'll let you move on right after I say this. When we were here last year or the year before, we were always talking about, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna stop this? It's being stopped right now because we have a president that actually cares. He's not.
Wait, I thought it was the Democrats who cared about people.
Right. Yeah. Oh, they're supposed to.
I thought they're the ones who. It's all about the children.
Right. And but this is about actually, really, if you care about the people that are being trafficked, if you care about our children, and the fact that we need to protect them from fentanyl, that we need to protect them from the drugs that are pouring across the border and the dangers that lead to gang infestation in our communities, then you have to care about shutting down that border.
That's right.
No longer are we emboldening the drug cartels or the human traffickers. We are saying absolutely not. You are on call. We are coming after you. Your time has ended. It is over for you. And our president, President Donald J. Trump, with the help of this administration, is going to do that.
So these nuns, I think they're the Sisters of Mary.
Right.
They're actually in some of the worst poverty areas all over the globe. They're in Korea, they're in the Philippines,
Correct.
They're in Mexico. They pull Nancy's sitting here in the front row. She knows this. They pull 4,000 girls approximately out of the most desperate of situations around Mexico. And they tell their families, give us your daughters for a period of time. They learn many languages. They have rosary, I think, every night at 6. They have an amazing formation. It's like a small number of nuns. And when I say there are a small number of nuns, they are small nuns. But I don't know if you know something about nuns.
They are.
The smaller the nun, the more they pack the punch. These are tough ladies. These are tough and sweet ladies. And they're surrogate mothers for 4,000 girls, many of whom pulled out of trafficking, pulled out of sexual abuse, pulled out of just terrible poverty. And you see this room and you realize one child at a time.
Right.
One child at a time. You save one child. You change history, right?
You change history, and a lot of these young women, and Nancy, you can attest to this because you know them as well, they get treatment. So these children, once they've been abused, once they've been sold into trafficking, the houses where we were at, there was a lot of sexual abuse. We went both to a house that held young girls. We also visited a home for boys. A lot of these children get psychological treatment, medical treatment, full treatment. So it's an all-around, all-encompassing, multi-purpose, multifaceted home to get them prepared for the future and for their future lives. Many of these young girls, in fact, a few of them have become international lawyers fighting against human trafficking.
The graduates of these programs are amazing, and they have such character. We walked into the home with the boys, and you meet them, and then they sang for us.
Yeah, they did.
Not a dry eye in the house. Can you imagine, after being through things I can't even imagine?
I can't. Yeah.
Most of us can't imagine. They still have the character and the strength to raise their voices to God and to, have this beauty about them. And so it's, I'd just like to encourage you all to, if you ever read cynical reports of, what's this trafficking thing? I don't know. It seems like they're making it up, putting it in movies and everything else. Chris, you and I are old now. You seem to have lost your hair. I seem to have had my hair turn a different color. We both had brown hair at one point when we were working together on the Hill. You're now doing great work in Georgia. What can this room do? What can CPAC do to help those of you who are in law enforcement get the bad guys and make sure they don't victimize any more kids?
Well, and Sara was talking about one element. That's restoration. Think about it. Let's talk a little bit about what human trafficking is, sex trafficking. And what we see in Georgia, we're talking about the average age of a victim is a 14 to 17-year-old girl. So we're talking about the 8th to the 11th grade. And human trafficking breaks human beings. And I believe everybody in this room believes in the dignity, value, and worth of every human being, and we have an obligation to put those human beings, try to put them back together. But you do it through restoration, but you also do it, Matt, through legislation. And that's why your ranking system matters, to make sure that legislators and the public understand what laws need to be passed. Because as you said, 8 years ago when I became Attorney General, people said that we were making this up. But we're literally having children.
Making it a political issue.
Making it a political issue, trying to scare people. But when you have 14 to 17-year-old girls being bought and sold 5 to 10 times per day, this is an issue that I think we not just have a legal obligation, but a moral one as well. So absolutely. So education. Every single person in this room can be trained on the signs of human trafficking, and I'd encourage you to do it. We in Georgia, our first ladies, put a training system together. You got to educate, you've got to legislate, but you also have to prosecute. And that's what we've done. So in 2019, in our state, our governor, our legislature gave us the authority to prosecute human trafficking. In these 5 years, we've rescued and assisted over 200 victims. That's 200 lives that will forever be changed. We've convicted 50 individuals on trafficking, and this is sellers as well as buyers and enablers. What's an enabler? Well, we prosecuted a clerk in a hotel that was in on the act as well. And as Sara said this, you cannot be serious about fighting human trafficking if you're not willing to secure the border. Because gang-affiliated, human trafficking, 80% of human trafficking is gang-affiliated, both in the country as well as transnational gangs as well as the cartels. And finally, we have an administration that's not willing to coddle criminals, But President Trump and A.G. Bondi and Kash Patel, they're willing to go after and partner with us too. So the cavalry is coming. And the people in this room are the cavalry as well. And God bless you for doing it.
So when you go to the airport and the either TSA official or the airline official, you know, I have 5 daughters, and when they look at me and ask me a couple extra questions, or my daughters a couple extra questions, you might think that they're harassing you. They're not. Because what these perpetrators do is they act like the little girl with them or the little boy with them is their kin. And oftentimes, especially with all this illegal immigration, they're not. And so welcome those questions. And if you see something that doesn't look right, go tell someone, I don't think this looks right, because they're masquerading as families, but they're really victimizing these kids. Is that right, Chris?
And that's a critically important point. When you train, you'll see the signs of human trafficking. Then you got to get over the stigma of actually going to somebody in law enforcement and saying, hey, I think something's wrong. We would be better off to be wrong than let one more child be abused, okay? Please take this seriously.
So what Chris is saying is all of us together collectively, all of you who support CPAC, we're the only group that ranks and rates every state legislator, every state senator, every state House member, every U.S. senator, every congressman, every governor. We're ranking all these people. There's all these international people. I think we should start rating the EU personally, the EU Parliament as well. But it's all the same stuff, guys. We're fighting all the same evil, satanic battles. But that's a good tool, and what we're using that tool for, including the money when you buy tickets and everything else, it's going towards these causes. One of them is hold these legislators accountable, and human trafficking is one of the ways we want to hold them accountable. Julio, the border, you spent a lot of time there. Sarah spent a lot of time there. Mexico's a complicated country. As I said, Mexico City is a beautiful country. They've elected this left-wing leader, unfortunately, to the presidency. But behind that, there's a lot of Mexican victims in the country with the rise of the cartels and everything else. Give us a little insight of the latest in the battle.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, by the way, I think the cartel heads are sweating a little bit that Donald Trump was elected president.
Thank God.
Yeah, definitely change dynamic. No, I mean, that's what always would surprise me, especially when the border crisis was at its peak, because whenever Republicans would obviously criticize, saying this is the wrong approach, they say, well, that's racist. You're just fear-mongering, you know, you're scared.
And that would back us down. I mean, you know, I always used to say they used to put me on CNN because I looked like Colonel Sanders or something. It's like when the black commentator knows that they call the white guy a racist, initially 5, 6, 7 years ago, the white guy's like, I got to get out of this conversation. There's no win here. Today, that's all changed because people of color have had enough of everyone being called a racist, because there's actual racism, and they've ruined the term by making it a political term.
Right, and so it would make me upset, because obviously with the increase of illegal crossings and human trafficking, that became more profitable than drug smuggling, because that became a cash cow. Alejandro Mayorkas, he said one of the most idiotic things, but it's because he was forced to by policy.
Which one?
It was at the very beginning of the Biden administration, where he said, if any child comes to the border by themselves, we will take them in. And that was the worst thing to say, because that was the dinner bell for these human smuggling organizations.
That's right.
Because not only is there a guarantee of a supply that they can provide for this demand, but it was the green light. It was a green light for that. And then, of course, as the cartels got that influx of cash, the Mexicans became victimized even more from their activities. So by emboldening these very dangerous criminal organizations, not only is it a threat to us here in the United States, but it's also a threat to the everyday Mexicans. And so, having a strong border and actually taking on these organizations is actually the best thing that we can do, not only for the United States, but also for our neighbors in Mexico. And I went to Oaxaca after the election to interview migrants to see what they were planning on doing now that Trump was going to be in office. And we were interviewing these group of Venezuelans. And as we were interviewing them, a small motorbike came up from behind. And if anyone has seen any videos from violence in Latin America. If a motorbike is coming, that's not usually a good sign. And this guy jumps off. He tells me to stop recording. He starts interrogating me and my team. And we're trying to figure, whoa, you know, what's going on? We have permission. We asked, you know, that they're fine with talking with us. And I was very concerned because I didn't know who this guy was. I didn't know if he was affiliated with any local gang or the cartel. It turned out that he was actually concerned about us, outsiders, coming into this camp because he said, the reason why I'm doing this is, and trying to force you guys out is because there's always people coming into the camps and taking away the women and children. And so this is, you know, as Sara was saying, this is real. It was the worst it's ever been with the destructive policies and the deliberate policies from the Biden-Harris administration. It is absolutely disgusting that this was not only allowed to happen, but it was made to happen.
At the tune of over 500,000 children coming into our country unaccompanied. Just think of that number.
Over what period of time?
That was during the Biden administration. So you had over 500,000 children.
We don't know where they are, right?
Over 300,000 were placed into homes we have no way of tracking. So we have no idea where they're at. Some of these places where they placed them, and I give Tara Rodas so much credit for this because she's a hero whistleblower from HHS, right? Tara, for those of you who don't know, look her up. But some of these children were placed in strip clubs. Like HHS literally turned over people who wrote down strip club addresses for these children and they can't find them. So now that we have Tom Homan in office, this is, yeah, as the borders are with President Trump, you know, this is a top priority for them to locate these children, to ensure that if people are abusing them or if they're in the hands of abusers, that those people are prosecuted by the Department of Justice with Pam Bondi.
So, Chris, can I say something on this real fast? I want you to jump in, but there's a political side to this too, which is the Democrats cynically believed that they own the black vote, that they own the Hispanic vote, that they own the immigrant vote, that they own the gay vote, they own these voting blocks. And so I believe they opened up the border, not because they have compassion for kids. If they're giving them to owners of strip clubs and stuff, that shows that was crap. But the fact is, this was a cynical ploy to let millions of people, 15 million at a minimum, into this country to change it demographically. I think the irony is a lot of those people, when they realize who we are and what America's all about, more and more of them are going to vote our way. But what's your take? Am I wrong about the politics?
No, you're right. And here's the other thing that I think this is important for conservatives to understand. You know, when I got into this 8 years ago, we didn't have a lot of criminal jurisdiction, but now we have human trafficking and gangs and organized retail theft. And I was told by somebody on the other side, be careful dealing with some of these issues because, Matt, like you said, you're going to get criticized for who the criminals are. And I said, well, I don't care what the criminal looks like. I care about the act that they engage in. But if we're going to look at something, let's look at who the victims are. Who is most often terrorized, vulnerable to human trafficking? Lower income, racially diverse immigrant populations. Who's most susceptible to violent crime and gangs? Lower income, racially diverse immigrant population. And when the woke DA won't prosecute property crimes and the CVS and the Walgreens and the Walmart has to close, which communities are most often impacted? Lower income, racially diverse, and immigrant. It's us conservatives that believe in the dignity, value, and worth of every human being. And we're the ones that believe no matter what your race or gender or where you're from, you deserve to be safe in this country. And we now have a president that agrees with that. And we in the state of Georgia believe in it. And it is paying dividends electorally as well.
And as much as I love a good political fight, I love a good political fight more than anything else, I'd give all that up to be able to shake hands with the head of the Democratic Party and say, let's work on this together.
Absolutely.
You'd save the lives of millions of children if they will just engage us on the idea that if you don't secure your border, you're victimizing children.
Well,
it's a human issue. It's not conservative, liberal, Republican, or Democrat. It is a human issue.
Well, and that's why, I mean, I can't emphasize this point enough. I always make sure to, you know, whenever I'm talking about this issue, no one had heard of Tren de Aragua before 2021. Yep. They started in Venezuela when all the Venezuelans were starting to leave back in the 2010s. It then became a Latin American issue, and then when Biden opened the border, and then we had all these Venezuelans coming, Tren de Aragua followed, and now we have cells all across the United States. And like, okay, it's great that we're really trying to make efforts to crack down on them. But it had to take cases like Lincoln Riley in order for people to actually take this seriously, and so many other victims as well. And that's why I have to laugh, because as we all seen, there's been anti-ICE protests by people who look like me. And they're say we have to stop deportations, you have to screw ICE and all this stuff. They're taking away hardened gang members right now. That's who they're prioritizing.
Come on, Julio. I know you're as cynical as I am. How are these? First of all, I wouldn't take on Tom Homan if you gave me like $1 million. He scares the hell out of me. He's going to be here, and I'm going to be very deferential. Second of all, these are paid agitators. Sometimes they have a pink you-know-what hat on their head. Sometimes it says BLM on their shirt. Right. Other times it's like anti-ICE. This is a coordinated, well-funded campaign to destabilize our political gains, right? And momentum.
And Antifa. And Antifa as well.
Oh, no, Antifa. Chris, I don't know if you understand this. Excuse me. I always forget. I know we're friends, General. Excuse me. Antifa is a, what did the guy say, the FBI director? It's a made-up.
Yeah.
It's an idea.
It's an idea. It's not
an idea.
An actual group.
It's an idea until they punch you in the face, and then it's not such a good idea.
And I would say that,
exactly
after 2020, because of the unbalanced judicial system that we previously had, even though the rioters stopped, the systems that were in place in 2020 to maximize that chaos, it never went away. And so that's why I kind of have faith now that we have Kash Patel at the FBI.
Kinda.
I do.
That those networks will finally be dismantled. And that's not to say there can't be any other types of chaos, but the systems, that never went away.
Can I just say,
well, and this is...
you have children, I have children.
Right.
Marty's probably done this. Here I'm living in the swamp. Not very popular in the swamp. Not very popular in my neighborhood. Not very popular with the local paper. You know that.
And not afraid. Not afraid to put the,
it's okay.
put the Trump signs
but
up.
I had to sit my girls down. I hated this. This was one of the grossest moments. Sat them down and said, the FBI comes to the door. Don't let them in. Don't talk to them. Don't trust them. I felt like dirty in saying that because I'm a pro-cop guy, but that's the reality. Kash Patel coming in, Tom Homan coming in, Trump coming in, people like Chris Carr in office, we got to stop the weaponization.
Well, that's it.
Absolutely.
That's it. And I know we're running short on time, and I just want to say this really quick, too.
She's a TV person, so she's very good at the prompter. When it's over, it's over.
Yeah, it's over, it's over. It's like, okay, sorry. But this is what Matt's saying is absolutely essential. What we were up against the last 4 years was a weaponization of our bureaucracy in such a way that it was destroying the foundation of our nation. It was breaking and tearing our nation apart. The reason we have people like Kash Patel and others, thank God, in these bureaucracies is to root out that corruption and to expose it. And the only way we're going to be able to protect ourselves and our families is by doing what's right. Common sense tells us, don't leave the border wide open. Don't do it. We protect our homes. We shut our front doors at night. Why do we leave our border wide open? This is going to take a lot of work. It's going to take the FBI. It's going to take the DOJ. It's going to take UAG, working day in and day out in order to save our country. Because as much as we're talking about the victimization of these children, our adversaries are out there, China, Iran and others, and they're seeing that border, and they saw that border as the last 4 years as an open sieve to destroy our country. And many times it comes across as a proxy war, like they did with fentanyl coming from China. And so we have to be very aware, and I'm just so grateful to be living in this time, in this amazing time where I know our country.
Did this room do a good job or what?
Wow, this
Thank you guys.
amazing.
You saved America. I think you saved civilization.
I do too.
I know that sounds like a broad term, and I just want to say in conclusion, thanks for being here, of course, and keep up the good work, Chris. And we got two real journalists here. These are real journalists.
Thank you.
The new version of journalists. But I just want to say one thing in conclusion. When you see the videos throughout the next couple of years, when you read the false charges about how either Kash or Tom Homan or Kristi Noem or Donald Trump or fill in the gap are destroying the lives of these mostly Hispanic people who are here illegally as deportations occur. All the lies and slurs that will come out, videos that will be true, probably deep fakes.
Right.
You know, instead of the ones when they said, well, Biden doesn't really have Alzheimer's, he's actually sharp as a tack. Yeah, whatever. When you read all that, understand behind that, what they're doing actually in securing the border is saving the lives of millions of kids who would have committed, you know, killed themselves with fentanyl, who would be victimized because they don't matter in our system. So don't let them lie to you. Know what's behind the headlines. Every country that believes in freedom starts with a border. And Chris and I are Catholic, even at the Vatican, by the way. You can't get in the Vatican without an appointment.
That's right.
And a country shouldn't be any different than that. So thank you all for being here today, and keep up the fight. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate it.